All right, we are live here once again on Watercooler Wednesday, April 8th. And good to be with everybody. A lot of things going on. Hope everybody had a good, safe, and wonderful Easter. And I just got back myself on Monday night. Went down to South Florida, see my family. And Dwayne, you kind of stayed in your neck of the woods, didn't you?
I did. Stayed home and hung out with my mom, and that was it.
That was about it.
Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of a surprise. I went down there fairly last minute, and Kendra wasn't able to come with me, so she stayed here. So I just took the Bright Rail train, the high-speed train down there, and I didn't know my older sister was going to be there with her daughters and everything, and they didn't know I was going to be there, so that was kind of fun. And they came walking in the door there. Um, let's see. So today, got a lot of things I want to go over. Sometimes on this broadcast, there's one topic that we go into. This one we're going to bounce around about three or four. Some of it's going to be a little math oriented, but I'll tell you what. Once you learn the math and how easy it is, this math makes you a lot of money. Everybody, that enables you to be creative, come up with creative solutions in this industry, and that is a game changer. You can buy notes that other people simply don't know how to buy. I've got two of those deals going on right now. Other people just pass because the math doesn't seem to work for them. So math is a part of this, and I've said over and over again, and Dwayne's heard it too many times, probably over all these years, but it's the numbers and the stories, everybody. It's numbers and story on every single deal. So you have to know the numbers. You have to know how to calculate all these things, and it's not that hard. It really isn't. For the most part, there's four variables. And all you have to do is give the calculator three of them, it'll solve for the fourth. And now if you're using AI, you can just ask it, and you don't even have to punch in the numbers anymore, but you have to know how to ask the right questions, right? Now, today I'm going to go through an example towards the end here that has a balloon note. And we do still see balloon notes in the industry, and it's a different calculation because now we're dealing with five variables. So you have to understand how those work, and sometimes it's a two-part step to get to whatever solution you're looking for. So here we are in April. You got the 15th coming up, tax time, which also just a reminder, if you need to put money in IRAs and 401ks and such, get it in now. So if you're using regular IRAs and regular 401ks, get that tax deductible deposit in there. Everybody, if you're using the Roth, still you want to fill those things up as you can. All the investments that we talk about in the note and real estate world, you're allowed to use your IRAs and 401ks if they are what we call self-directed, and you have the option to do that. Speaking of which, if you are using an IRA or 401k to invest in notes, get ahead of the game. And what I mean by that is there is a process that these IRA companies have. All of them say, "Yep, notes, no problem, real estate, whatever, we can do it all." But let me tell you something, they have a process, and it seems every time that you want them to invest in a note, it's like, well, we got to see this, we got to see that, we have to do this, it's got to go through the review. It takes a little bit of time, and you have to get ahead of the game. So it's always best with these IRA and 401k companies say, "Look, I'm in the process here of buying a note. What do you need? Do you have a step-by-step formula or step-by-step guide that we can look at so we can help expedite this process?" Some are better than others. I'll be quite honest with you. So it's not always, it's not a buyer's fault. Sometimes they're just like, I don't know. Now the legal department needs to review something. There was one company, Dwayne, when they took over a bunch of other companies, but they weren't as familiar with the note space and real estate space, and they wanted all the signed contracts before they would fund it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, the seller's not going to sign the contracts until you fund it.
That's right.
So, it's like, where are we? I can show you the contracts, that will be signed, but you've got to put the money in escrow before they're going to sign it. I mean, it's pretty simple concept. So we've had a fight through that with one company, and others are just they're just slow, and I'd hate to see people lose deals over just simply not able to
But
fund these things. So get ahead of
yeah,
the game, make sure you know what they're looking for, and stay on top of them. I hate to say it, but your deal is not that important to them. It's just another day at work. It's important to you. So you need to stay on top of it and guide it along the way, and don't just sit back and, hey, did you get to it yet? It's like, look, we need to get this deal going here. What's holding it up? So keep that in mind here
I've
in
seen I've
April.
seen I've seen a situation so many times where, at training classes that we've done, somebody wants to buy a note and they're like, "Oh, how are you going to fund it?" Well, I got my IRA and my administrator says I can have it instantly. Are you
Yeah,
sure?
yeah,
And then come to find out, well, I missed that deal. The administrator didn't, things didn't go through. We had to wait for the IRA company, and it took longer. My money's there. Well, your money's there,
yeah.
but is it in process for that money to be released to use? And so everybody thinks it's like just walking in the bank and, hey, I want $20. Don't work like that.
Yeah. And by the way, the IRA custodian company that you're using, they're not determining, you sure about the yield on that one? What's your ITV? They're not looking, they're not looking at any of that stuff. That's what
Yeah.
you looked at. What they're trying to determine, is it an allowable investment? That's really what they're looking to do. So of course they need to see the paperwork and the contracts. Got no problem with that. But they all have legal departments today. Because all the IRA companies, there were some rule changes, not to get too deep into this, but that's why you'll notice the self-directed IRA companies are all trust now, you know, Equity Trust, Horizon Trust, all these, they converted to trust companies from various regulations. And, so now they've got a legal team that has to go through the paperwork. But I think what the problem is, part of the delay, as you could imagine, is how many deals can the legal department process in a day? So um,
I would
anyway,
work with a company that understands the note business. I mean, if you're just with Raymond James or somebody and they have self-directed IRAs and they don't understand it, because sometimes administrative companies like that push back because they don't understand note business. You and
yeah,
I know companies that understand, and they're actually their personal portfolio is well versed in real estate investments, note business, stuff like that. So make sure
yeah,
you have the right company if you're looking to invest in the note business.
yeah. And they still take time, those companies as well. Um, oh shoot, I just had something there I was going to mention, but
Sorry.
left me. No, that's all
Sorry
right.
about that.
No, no worries. But yeah, so if the company specializes in it, great. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So sometimes people default into, well, my company takes too long, so I'm going to get checkbook control. And checkbook control, you're good with a 401k, everybody. Checkbook control with a 401k is much, much, much less forgiving if you make a mistake. How do you make mistakes? Commingle funds. You wrote a check you weren't supposed to out of the IRA, or sorry, out of the 401k. Very clear there, out of the 401k. You get a slap on the wrist. Because with a self-directed 401k, especially if you're a solo company, you're a solo LLC, something like that, and you form a 401k, you are both the administrator of that, but you're also the beneficiary of that. So they can't punish the beneficiary for a mistake the admin made. With a self-directed IRA, you make one mistake and potentially they'll call the whole thing as paid out. You have to pay a penalty tax on that. You have to pay early withdrawal tax on that and federal income. They will crush you if you make a mistake on an IRA. So if you have checkbook control of an IRA, you better be extremely careful at what you did. Years ago, I read this story, for example, just to give you an example. Somebody had a self-directed IRA and their account got overdrafted.
Hmm.
Well, the overdraft was taken out of their personal account. And the IRS said, no, 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 you
Commingle.
can't do that. You commingled your personal funds with the IRA, and they had to pay, taxes and penalties and all that stuff. So, Yeah, you don't want to be the one who runs into that situation, everybody. 401k, a lot more leeway on that. Don't make avoid mistakes. John, I'm not saying just go wild with the 401k, but if you do happen to make an error, it's more of a slap on the wrist. Like, don't do that again.
Money's coming. Money's coming.
All right. So I had a couple of things go on this week. One of my clients had to take a property back, and it was a long process in Pennsylvania, and the borrowers played every card in their hand that they could, you know, and it took longer than it should. But this sometimes is what happens. These borrowers don't pay you, but boy, somehow they've got a lot of knowledge about how to, just use the law in their favor as much as they can. And it took a while. And look, we don't get into this business to take people's houses. We'd much rather have the steady cash flow, but you got to pay to stay. And are going to be borrowers who just won't do that. And it starts in a typical pattern. They're late. You send demand letters, and then they try to catch up or make an offer or something like that. And then you try a modification, and then it goes right back to where it was. And now they're just ignoring you and living in there as you're starting the foreclosure process. And then they get down the road and they'll file bankruptcy, is what happened on this one. They went through the bankruptcy. They were denied the bankruptcy, or they withdrew. It just says withdrawal, so we're not sure if they were denied it or if they just voluntarily withdrew. Probably voluntarily withdrew, but why did they file it then? To delay the action, to delay the foreclosure action. So they pulled every trick that they could to try to stay in that property, including staying in the home after the foreclosure sale. They were just like, well, all right, the house is foreclosed upon. We're still here. What are you going to do? And now there's another legal process where the sheriff has to go out and put a notification. You got 30 days, this, that, and the other. So they went all through that process. And now it's at the point I had a consult with him yesterday, a 1 hour consulting session, and he goes, "Okay, we got it back. The people had to the end of this month to move out, but we had somebody go by. They've completely moved out." And of course, I saw all the pictures, and they left everything they could.
Uh,
Typical. Just junk everywhere, couches, old furniture, probably food in the kitchen. It was hard to tell in some of the pictures just what everything was. It wasn't quite hoarder TV level stuff, but it was pretty bad. And again, it's kind of a big, hey, screw you, big bad banker, and my client, it was not their fault. It's the delinquent borrower's fault that they got themselves into this position. And like I said, you want to stay, you got to pay, and they just weren't willing to do that. So they left him a mess.
that's terrible.
But so he's like, okay, so what do we do? What's the process here and everything else? Secure the property. Okay. Notify the sheriff that it's been vacant. So they're on notice. Secure the property by changing locks on the doors. If there's broken windows, board them up, fix some. But you've got to get that trash out of there, because if there's food and everything else, it'll start with the small bugs, and then it'll eventually grow, right? I said, and the smells, and get that stuff out of there. So explained how to do all that, and just clear it out. And then financially, it's like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to take it back? Do you want to fix it up and resell it? You want to fix it up, resell it with seller financing? You want to turn around, just sell it for cash as is once you have it cleaned out? What do you want to do? And you have to run the numbers on all of that. So financially wise on this one, he's gonna make money. It's just a matter of how much and when. Why? Because he bought right. Okay, that's why it's so important to buy these notes the right way. Because if something does go bad, and I think Well, this is the only one so far this year that somebody's had to take back. Last year, we might have had one.
Mm,
Well, we had two last year, but one of them, it was a non-performing note that was vacant. So it was like a foregone conclusion. He's taking
yeah.
that, taking that price. That's why I bought it, to get the property back. So, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, you don't panic when you know that you've bought right. So he's got a good amount. He's got about 70,000 in this all in. What he paid for the note, what he's paid for legal, property taxes, all that sort of stuff. But the house is after repaired value 160, 170, you know. So you start backing into that and go, well, you can turn around and sell the house, clean it out, so an investor can walk in and they, can see beyond the bags of whatever, and the old furniture and stuff, and just, that's not expensive, a couple grand. I'll get that thing cleaned out and sell it as is to an investor. You could sell for 100 grand. They got to put 20, 30,000 into it. They can still make 20, 30,000. You could do that. You want to fix it up because he's leaning that way too. He's like, hey, we've been in it for this long, and you know, roof looks good. Electrical, plumbing. So I told him get some estimates. Get some estimates on what the rehab is gonna be, and then you're armed with more information as to, all right, it's only going to cost us 20 grand to fix it up, but if we fix it up, probably in this case 30. But if we're in for 100 and we can sell it for 160, why not? So to be determined, but my point being, if you do run into a situation, first of all, buy right is the main point. Secondly, you're always prepared for worst case scenario. If in the rare instance you have worst case scenario, which is you got to take the property back, start to figure out what your solutions are. And again, it comes back to those principles I talk about, which is gather information, organize it, analyze it, make a decision, right? So he's in the phase now of gathering information, right? So he's going to outsource that, boots on the ground. What's it going to cost for this? What's it going to cost for that? What does a local real estate agent think? Days on market, that sort of stuff. Start gathering that information. Then you can properly analyze it to make what? A decision. It's pretty simple. But as long as you look at the long-term picture on these things, if you bought right, you can always work your way out of a deal and make money, on it. And so he's he's the kind of guy, he's actually really kind of looking forward to the process in a way. Um, just from an educational standpoint, I think it's one of those things, Dwayne, where you almost, if you go, okay, I took a deal from performing to non-performing with the bankruptcy and then taking it back and then sold it as is, or, fixed it up ourselves. He's going to run the gamut on this one note. And then he's what? He's bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
I
No
mean,
question. I mean, he's educated. I mean, you hate to say it. You hate to say it, but I mean, that's really going around the entire barn. But he, as we say, he bought a lot of the experience on this particular deal. So he did everything. He
yeah.
did everything. And now talking about understanding what each segment looks like on performing, non-performing, having to take the property back, all of that and redo. Um, yeah, he has a better understanding of how these notes work.
Oh,
If
confidence level just,
absolutely.
through the roof.
And
Yeah.
the situation happens again, it's going to be a lot easier for him to deal with versus first time. So it's just like anything that you're doing for the first time, you struggle a little bit, but confidence level, like you said, goes through the roof.
Yeah. And it'll affect every aspect of his future investing because he'll look at deals differently. Because when we first look at this deal, it was performing pretty well. Pattern was good, but you can't take that for granted. You
Right.
just have to. So he'll look at it through a different lens. For sure. And that's that lens of education in that and directly. So it's interesting. So he's gone through a little bit of a milestone. He goes, "Yeah, big day today." He said that yesterday, right? He goes, "Finally had a breakthrough on this, and they moved out early, so." Um, let's get the game plan going there. So perfect. So buy right, everybody. Try to prepare for all different scenarios, and you'll work your way through it.
That's right.
Okay. Oh, and one of the things too, he's talking about. Well, it turns out that he did. a private loan. Remember, in the note business, there's buying existing notes, but the note business also is also lending money or creating a note. So he did, just so happens, he did a private loan to a fix and flipper about
Mm.
30 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
So when he told me that nugget, I'm like, well, there's your start. Who does he use as a real estate agent? Who's his guy that,
Be the
takes out the
guy.
trash,
You
at the
be the
house? Who's
guy.
that?
Yeah.
It's like you got all that stuff there. And I said, plus, you may want to consider bringing him in as an equity partner.
Hmm.
Let him oversee the work because he's there locally. You're not,
Vested
and you
interests.
you got another full-time job. Bring that guy in for a percentage of the sale. So you don't have to pay him up front. Just say, look, you oversee the work. I'll pay for the work. You oversee it. You get it done. And when we sell it, you get X number of a percentage or whatever it is. Pretty great way to go. And that way he's got a built-in team. 30-minute drive
Hmm.
is not that, not that much. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's going to do pretty good on it. And I told him to get a camera on there. It's so inexpensive today, the Ring doorbell type of stuff, the light floodlight that comes on. Because who knows? Are these people going to, come back in, something like that? Don't know. And that's why you got to get the sheriff involved too to say, look, it's vacant. They've deserted it. The power's been turned off. My client didn't turn off the power. The borrowers did.
Mm.
So that's a pretty clear sign that they're done. They're out.
They're done. Yeah.
So, but let the sheriff know and all that works good. All right. Another thing this week, changing topics on you here. I put in 10 bids. I may have mentioned that last week. I
Hmm.
don't know. Um, so in the industry, there's still companies that work on a bidding system. It's usually a blind bid. Here's the assets. We're going to give you a lot of information minus all the paperwork. We're going to give you the numbers, make an offer. And if we like your offer, we'll accept the offer. And then you've got X number of days, let's say 20 days to close. And in those 20 days, you can do your due diligence and BPOs and title reports or whatever it is that you need to do to verify that the information they provided was accurate. Okay. And that's what we're looking at. In other words, if you end up winning a bid on something and they told you the property was worth $100,000, you get a BPO that says it's worth 60, you got a problem, which
Hmm.
you can legally withdraw from the deal or renegotiate by showing them, hey, look, here's the local agent, right? They're saying 60 grand. So I'm not sure
Sure.
where you got your 100,000 number from and go from there. Or same thing if the title comes back. They told you it was in first position lien, and it turns out, oh no, there was an underlying loan. It's in second position. That's a big deal. So that gives you cause to legally, morally, ethically back out or renegotiate from the deal. But if everything works out, you're expected then to close on the transaction. So the bidding process is one way that we have assets in this industry. And then the other way is through things like trading platforms, direct negotiation, where you can get the documentation ahead of time. So there's a complete difference between some of the ways that you purchase these assets. Um, and you should be well versed in all of those items. The bidding is really my least favorite, always has been, especially the bidding where everybody's got 10 days and then submit all your bids. Versus if you make a bid and they accept it that night because it's within the range that they're looking for, okay, not as bad in my opinion. But when you're just waiting for bid after bid and you don't know how many people are bidding, you have to limit how much effort you can put in those deals. I made offer on 10 notes, but I didn't go to public records on 10 deals. I didn't start going through all the documentation on public records on 10 deals. I'd be spending way too much time not knowing if I'm going to win any of the bids. So when it comes to those type of bids, I put less effort into the full discovery because they're giving me time after I win to do that. So why do it now? I'm going to put the time into just running the numbers. Okay. I won't know the story. Now, I know I just said it's numbers and stories, and it is. But in this situation, I don't have the story. I can't get the story because I don't have the paperwork from them. and they're not going to provide it. So all I have to go on are the numbers. So great. Let me put my time and effort into the numbers, make a bid that I'm happy with. Then if I win, then I'll gather all the documents. Then I'll start to get the story and put the two together. Okay. And that's the way you have to approach those. So I just found out because I emailed them yesterday and I just emailed them back again this morning. And because I hadn't heard anything, I thought we were going to learn Monday who the winners were. And basically the way they do it is if you don't hear anything, you weren't the winner. So there's no like,
Kind of
hey,
like the lottery.
you're in third place. It's basically, yeah, I didn't hear anything. Tuesday didn't hear anything, so I emailed him and so this morning, just about 30 minutes before we jumped on here, I'm the uh, winning bidder on two, but he's got to hear back from the seller, if they're going to accept those bids or not. So I'm the highest bidder, I should say, not the winning bidder, bad way to put it. I'm the highest bidder on two of the 10 that I bid on. But now we have to see if the seller's going to accept that bid. You know. Um,
Talk.
so I lost eight or didn't get eight. And I'm totally good with that because in the bidding system, there's a tendency for people to overbid.
I was getting ready to say, why don't you talk a little bit why
Yeah.
bidding is such a challenge?
It's why they do the bidding system.
That's right. They want people to overbid,
Then you get people
obviously.
go, yeah,
I paid too much for
I
that.
put it in at a 10% yield, but I don't know, other people are going to do that. So I'll come in at 9.7. I'll
Yeah.
come in at 9.5. They start to, play the numbers a little bit. And that's where you're starting to trim off your profit margins, on the things. And I always looked at it like, hey, I spent X number because once you know how to run the math on this stuff and you understand Excel spreadsheets, because that's a format that they come in for the most part, it doesn't take me long to add some columns, run the math, do all that, and just calculate the whole thing all at one time, the entire tape. And then I pick the ones that I think are the best. And then I do go and look at the condition of the properties on Google Maps. But that's the depth of my real research on that, because
Yeah,
that's
you do
really
have a
all you
good
can
system
do.
for that. You
Yeah.
have a good system for that. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
And that's really all you can do, with that information. Otherwise, you'll start just wasting a whole lot of time researching that. So if you just want to research and train that way, fine. But if you're a professional investor, and you're looking for deals, I'm not going to go to public records on all those, knowing that I might just win two. I might have not got, I still might not end up with any of them. We're still looking at the seller. So I'm not going to put all of that time and effort into doing that versus on the trading platforms, I absolutely do because I know I can communicate with the seller. I know that I can get information from them before we even get to contract, right? Before we get to a purchase sale. So understand the system that you're working within. Read if it comes by email, read that email. If it's a website, read the details of that so you understand how that works. And I don't think there's any companies that require you to put money down for a bid. Was there one a ways back?
There was.
I remember somebody who was doing a lot of non-performers and they were a flash in the pan company. I looked at some of their assets and I'm like, you got
Yeah.
to be joking me with the prices. And there was some chatter in the industry about them. And then guess what? They were gone. They were gone. Yeah. Um, So you shouldn't have to do any of that, so you're not losing out on any money. But I'll tell you this also on the bidding
They wanted
system.
that and they wanted verification of funds before they would listen to anything.
I gotcha. Yeah. Most of them don't do that, everybody. I don't know of any that do that anymore. So again, just understand where you're bidding, what it's all about. And if you don't understand it, get some help. Get some help. You don't want to get to one of these new websites where you put a bunch of money down and then you back out of a deal and you never see your money again. You didn't read the small print, so get some help, and that's where the experience and longevity and everything comes into play. All right. The last thing here I have is switching topics on you. Again, coming back to the math. Get yourself a good financial calculator. I've used for years the 10BII. It's the easiest out there. for a number of reasons I don't need to get into. Just listen to me. It's the easiest one. Okay. It's a 10BII app. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on your laptops. You can get it on your, iPads, your computers, everything. It runs from $6 to $14 depending upon what device you're putting it on. And if you're going to be buying these notes, if you don't have
Gotta
that,
have it.
then I don't know what to tell you. You
Yeah.
don't understand the math, you know. So get one of those. They're the easiest to use. And it's for those who might think, oh, it's not that hard. It's really not if somebody explains it to you properly. And it gets a little more complicated when you throw in the balloon aspect. Okay, so for those who don't know, what a balloon is this, where you might have, okay, it's a $50,000 loan. We're going to make it at 7% interest over 30 years, over 360 payments. That's what your payment amount is. Great. That's part one. Part two is now, however, the entire balance is due in the 60th month, in the 120th month, whatever that might be. So it's an effective way to, we're going to make your payments as if you're paying over 30 years, but in 10 years, you need to pay off the loan in full, whatever that balance is. And that balance is called the balloon. Okay, so so if we just zipped it up at that point in time, that's what's owed. Think of it this way. If you, in your own home, let's say you got a 30-year mortgage from Bank of America, right? And you're paying on that. And then in 10 years, you sell your house. Well, what do you have to do? You got to pay off the total loan. How do they calculate that? Just like what's left on that? Boom, there's your balance. That's what the balloon is at that point in time. So it's common, that we run into these things, but a lot of people get blown away on the math for that. So I came upon a listing on a note for sale here, and I've blocked out some of the information because it's a real deal I'm working on. And let's see here. If you're just listening to this on the podcast, you may want to go back and watch this on YouTube if you're not watching it live here on Facebook, because it is a little math centric. And if you want to see the actual calculator and stuff, you can do that through the YouTube. So I'll do my best to describe it for everybody who's just listening on the podcast. And the podcast, by the way, is Real Estate Without Renters. You can find it wherever podcasts are. I post all of these there, and I also do some interviews from time to time and post them on there too. There's a bunch of stuff you can go back and listen to on the pod, if you will, called Real Estate Without Renters. Okay, so we've got a good value here in the property, $170,000. They owe 109 and they're asking 97,000 bucks. But you'll notice as you read through the story here, this trading platform is not quite set up for balloon payments. So they tell you that, they give you a little heads up in the description here saying, look, here's what the payments are, but this note balloons 88 months from now because the note was created back in 2018. Okay. So now that balloon is approaching, in another 88 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but that makes the math a little bit different. So they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole here. So they're just kind of giving you the heads up. And again, I think that's where most people would look at this and not know what the heck they're doing because the math doesn't play out. If you value this as you're buying the note over 360 months, you're going to get different numbers here. So what do we look at here on the financial calculator? So the financial calculator, first of all, it thinks in terms of money out, money in. So it has to have a negative number in there, which throws a lot of people. It's not you're losing money, it's money out, money in. So when you do balloons, to keep that mindset, you're going, okay, if I'm trying to calculate what the balloon is on this note, what is the current balance of the note? So the present value there is $109,363. That's our PV. That's our present value. That is the unpaid balance of the note right now. Okay, we got that from the listing. We know it's written at 7% interest, so that's our interest per year. or I/YR on the keypad. And then the monthly payment, we're also told what that is. That's $818.32. That is our PMT or monthly payment. So all we have to do is enter those three variables and then click on N to solve for the fourth. And then we get 260 months remaining. Now, I could have done that a completely different way. I could have said, I know from the listing there's 260 months remaining. I know it's at 7% interest, and I know the payments are 818.32. So then let me just click and solve for present value. I could have put in present value, interest, and pay, just give me any three. I can solve for the fourth. Okay, so that's how the financial calculator works here. So when we're calculating this balloon and then our yield, the first thing we have to establish is what does the loan look like right now, and enter that into what we call the financial registers of that calculator, which are those buttons on the top. Okay, the N, number of payments, interest per year, present value, and PMT being the monthly payment. Now, you'll notice on there, there's an FV. You can imagine what FV stands for, which is future value. Okay, we're going to need that overall in this calculation. So once we've established where the note is now payment-wise, okay, so again, it's amortized over this remaining 260 months. We've got to get our payment amount correctly in there. Then I'm going to come back and say, all right, they told me in 88 months there's a balloon. Well, how much would that balloon be? So I change my number of payments remaining to 88. Interest rate stays the same. Unpaid balance stays the same. Payment stays the same. So what am I solving for now? Future value. Okay, the future value is the balloon. So the balloon in 88 months is going to be 88,697 bucks. Okay. Now, I know in a format like this, you might be getting a little lost and this is difficult. It's not, but this is the stuff you guys have to understand, to run these numbers. I didn't do anything magical there. I put in three variables to solve for the fourth, and then I put in four variables to solve for the fifth. That's it. The financial calculator does the work for you there. So now that we know what that balloon is, we could go back and solve for the yield. Okay. So they wanted, if you recall, $97,000 for this note. So my financial calculator shows me what the balloon is and everything else with the present value here of 109. All I have to do now is what? Solve for my yield. What would my yield be if I paid their asking price of $97,000? That's the question I'm asking the financial calculator. So keeping all those numbers in there, what's the thought process? Well, what am I solving for? Interest per year. That's my yield. What data is going to change? My investment, because my present value is going to be what I invest. Present value of the loan, 109,000. I'm not paying 109,000. I'm paying what? 97,000. So if I go in there and just change that to the $97,000 that I'm paying out, okay, and then I solve for interest per year because all the other variables stay the same, it comes out to 9.31%. So another way of saying that is if you invested $97,000 and you're getting back 818 a month for 88 months, and then you're getting a balloon of $88,697, you're making 9.31% per year. That's it. Is that a good enough return, though? Not if you can get stuff at 10 to 12. Okay. So,
I have a feeling about that.
which is,
My feeling is if you haven't done a deal and you have money sitting there that's not generating anything, you have it in a money market account where you're getting 1.5%, and it's been there for a while, and you have the funds. I would take that money and invest it into, I would be okay with 9.3. I'm not saying every time. I'm saying if money is sitting into account and you're like, I gotta do something. I'm in my 60s. I haven't done anything. I have this money sitting here. I don't really know what a lot about the note business, but I know that this is better, and I don't want to own a bunch of sticks and bricks. I don't want to be a landlord. All of that. So, I'll get myself some education, have somebody show me why this is a good value buy.
Mhm.
But understanding that I'm going to be at a 12 or 14%, but I have money that's just sitting here on the sidelines and I'm not doing anything with, and I'm collecting less than 1.5% a year.
Right.
I would buy that note then.
And you've
And I
got
would bet there are some people out there that have money just sitting, not doing anything at all.
right. And you've got bonus yield in there as well, right? Because you paid 97,
That's right.
they owe 109. So 97, 98, 99, 100, and so you're looking at another $12,000 discount in there if this when this pays off one way or another. That 12,000 is going to stay over that amortization schedule pretty solid for quite some time, certainly through the 88 months. So you got
Hmm.
bonus yield, which is future coming. So that's another way to look at it. Based on what Dwayne said, you would also have reviewed the payment history. Are they paying and that sort of stuff, and looked at
Of
that.
course, yeah.
And you looked at the property value, going, well, it's worth 160. I'm in it for 97. So once again, I'm safe if things go wrong. Sure. And that's 100. You're right. And you certainly could take that approach. Another approach that I proposed to them, I was like, well, look, how about this? I'll buy the next 87 payments, and then
Yep.
you get the balloon. You
That's right.
keep the balloon to the seller, right? So I'm making a deal with the seller. It's like, look, we've got 87 payments, and then we've got this balloon in the 88th month, which is the last payment in the balloon amount. So I run back through my calculator and say, okay, for 87 payments, making I want to get an 11% yield, okay, on those $818 payments. I'm not going to get a balloon. Okay. So there's no FV there. So how much should I invest today to get back $818 for 87 months at 11%? Answer, $48,912.
Hmm.
They get the balloon. And maybe they'll do that. Maybe they won't. Right. So they're asking 97, but they would be getting $48,000 now, but they're also getting what? $88,000 later, 88
You
months.
know, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
Hmm?
So I
No.
was going to say something. Go ahead.
So it's another way to look at it. And this is where you need to think of these as linear payouts, so we can talk about what am I doing here? I'm essentially doing a partial, same concept. I'm just doing the partial to end before the balloon hits. Let them get the balloon. Um, I could do part of the balloon as well, but this way it's a little cleaner. I'm just getting the payments. You deal with the balloon because maybe they pay the balloon, maybe it's refinanced after that, stretched out, anything like that later on. And I could always look, you know, if things are going really good on this deal, 87 months have gone by, can I go back to the seller and say, hey, I know you got this $88,000 coming, but they're already indicating they can't refinance. They're not in a position to do that, and they don't have the money to pay it, and they don't want to sell the house. So it's going to be a refinance. Do you want to sell that balloon? So I can always negotiate. So it's putting me in a great position. Yeah, and then so that's just the math, and I looked up property tax and everything else on this one, but that's a different story. So different ways, to buy these things as well, and that's why, once again, understanding the math behind this stuff is important, and being able to come up with creative offers, things like that. All of a sudden, you'll see more deals than if you're a one-trick pony and only know one way to invest. Very good. Long one today, but good stuff. And just,
Hmm.
these are all everything I'm talking about. This is stuff we work on a daily basis, everybody, and every week. And that's why I'm able to bring new content every single week. It's just stuff that we are working on. And so if you're interested, once again, in the note business, you want a personal coach, you want somebody to invest with you, we offer all of those programs. You can visit us at Kevin's Hotel You can schedule an appointment with Dwayne right through there on Calendly. We can talk through it, see if this is the right thing for you, and get you going. Because as you can see, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you have a deal that you're working on or something that Kevin has said along the way that you're really unsure of, shoot us a message, put it in the chat comment area, and we'll look at it. So if you have a deal and hey, I'm not sure how this works out, what this looks like, send it over. Let us look at it, and we may be able to feature this on a Water Cooler Wednesday for you.
Very good. All right, everybody. Thanks on behalf of myself and Dwayne. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See ya.